Hello everyone, this is part 16 of What If Naruto Got His Wish, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, to share, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
Join my membership, the perks are great. It's in the description. Konoha saw the mid-afternoon sun for the first time in many days. There was not a soul in the whole of the village that was not glad to see it. All of the streets in the center of town were full of survivors, praising the gods, their Hokage, and even the Suna shinobi, whom they had only 3 years ago cursed as they now cursed the ninja of the rock. The village was a horrible mess. Everywhere, the rubble of collapsed buildings and exploded pathways obstructed the movements of the medical teams, and craters full of half-day-old balked the queasier members of the cleanup crews. Fire suppression teams were working themselves to exhaustion as they contained one conflagration only to have another rekindle itself halfway across the village. Commerce was effectively halted. Shinobi were living on soldier pills or on nothing at all, allowing the civilians and the wounded to eat the limited stores of food that had not been lost. Many people grieved for lost friends and relatives. But Konoha was nowhere near as weakened as it had been 3 years previously. The property damage affected less than 30% of the village, the main enemy forces having gone straight for the most valuable targets and been halted there. Civilian casualties were limited almost expressly to those who had been in the path of the initial explosive entry, the brave and proud shinobi having protected them to the end even at the cost of their lives. Indeed, the shinobi themselves suffered the greatest loss. Nearly 1/5 of their number had lost their lives in the vicious O, and another 1/4 had been gravely injured. Due to the timely arrival of the ninja of the sand, however, none of the enemy had escaped alive, and the destruction was halted within 3 hours of its beginning. Because of the great number of injuries, the main hospital building was unimaginably crowded. Yet, Kakashi had done well for his former students and their friend. He had commandeered a room for just the 3 of them. Though the Florence Nightingales had had some difficulty squeezing a third bed into the 2-patient room, Lee had volunteered his assistance, and the task was accomplished to the masked Junin's liking fairly quickly. Hinata counted herself lucky when the bright sun glared through the open window and woke her. She had slept peacefully for 8 hours, judging by the clock on the wall, and her injuries did not pain her very badly as she sat up in her hospital bed. Before she had sickbed to sleep earlier, she had been told that her family survived. She would not have to grieve for the loss of her father, her sister, or Haruka. Kiba was one room adjacent to theirs and in stable condition, Akamaru standing faithful watch at the door. All of her precious people had survived, and she herself was in excellent shape. Thank goodness, she breathed to herself. Her heart, despite the strains of the previous day and night, was at peace. So, you're awake too. Hinata smiled warmly at her. You're very stoic, Sakura-chan. If it were me, I would probably still be flat on my back. Sakura returned the smile half-heartedly. Maybe, she said, but then again, you would never let this happen to you. There's no force on earth that can crack your defense when you're serious. The Hyuga girl detected something familiar in her friend's voice. It was something that she herself had often felt in the past. I don't think it was your fault, Sakura-chan, she said gently. I understand. It is difficult to stand opposite a loved one and fight with your heart in it. She stopped. Sakura's smile had fallen away. That isn't it, Hinata-chan, Sakura said. My heart was in it. I fought him with all of the skill and power I had. I was ready to use lethal force if I had to. The girl's unbandaged hand clenched hard at the bedsheets, wringing them in its grip. Her face was strained, she was working hard to keep it from blooming into a mask of misery. And even with all of that, she finished, I still wasn't able to stop him. Naruto had to save me again. Sakura's gaze turned from her dark-haired friend to her teammate in the bed beside her. The blonde boy was fast asleep, exhausted from his efforts. Yesterday had quite possibly been the most taxing day of his life. He had survived the engraving of the caged bird seal, an assassination attempt by Akatsuki, an inner struggle with the Bayou inside of him, and the near-apocalyptic battle with his arch-rival. His chakra had been almost entirely depleted. Yet, Rest and the restorative powers of demonic chakra were curing him at the usual accelerated rate. Sakura's analytical surgeon's eyes told her that he would be fully healed within another 48 hours. Naruto was the only one who could even keep up with him, she went on. Naruto the idiot, the S last, the L. I never gave him full credit for his good qualities. You did, Hinata, and in the end it was you who went with him and ended it. Not me. Hinata's heart went out to her friend. She knew what it was like to feel useless. She would not wish it on anyone else. Leaning towards her, she spoke in quiet, even tones. It's a little ironic, isn't it? She asked. Sakura's head rotated back her way. A confused expression was on her face. Seeing that she had her attention, Hinata continued. For the last 3 years, it was always you was counseling me. I was the one who constantly needed to be reminded of her own self-worth. It was me who was uncertain of whether or not I would be able to do things differently. You were the strong one, Sakura-chan. Sakura's expression shifted as memories resurfaced in her brain. She found herself reliving the times that she had discovered Hinata battling with self-doubt at Ichiraku's or some other place. In those times, your words would always bring me back to myself, Hinata said. You would speak wisely, sometimes from your own experience, and I would remember my own ability, remember why I was trying so hard. I'll return some of that wisdom to you now, Sakura-chan. If you keep dwelling on your past mistakes, you'll drown in your own tears. Sakura's pale face brightened. She remembered that it was the first one she had used, when Hinata had been sad over having been too shy to bid Naruto farewell. The two of them had started to become much greater friends after that. Hinata-chan, she began. You aren't the only one who is troubled, said Hinata, see her off. Naruto-kun and I managed to stop him, but Sasuke-san did not come peacefully. She swallowed hard at the memory, and peered across Sakura's bed at the blonde to reassure herself. He nearly killed Naruto-kun, even when he knew that he had been defeated. He is still dangerous, Sakura-chan. I keep worrying that either he will escape and try to finish what he began, or that Naruto-kun, who wants so badly to make him see reason, will do something terribly rash. Something rash, Sakura thought. Now that I think about it, Naruto does tend to go to extremes when he tries to reform people. I've heard the stories from Tsunade-sama. What if Naruto tries to earn Sasuke-kun's trust by setting him free? Or what if he makes some ridiculous self-sacrificing bargain? It's possible. When you said that if anyone could stop Sasuke-san, it was Naruto-kun, you were right, Hinata said. But I think that the best bet to reform him safely is you, Sakura-chan. You were wise enough to turn my mood around when my faith slipped. You should be able to do something to help your teammate, too. And if you can't, then you can at least help to talk Naruto-kun out of making any horrible mistakes. Sakura stared at her friend for a long moment. Then, a magical change came over her, color returned to her skin, and the sadness left her eyes, replaced by renewed determination. Her mind had been made up. Against the pain of her injuries, she got out of the bed. Her legs were fine, and she was able to stand easily. Hinata questioned her with her pearl eyes. Sakura-chan. Sakura turned her back and began walking to the locker on the other side of the room, where her clothes were. Thank you, Hinata-chan, she said over her shoulder. I know what I have to do now. Even if I couldn't do things exactly as I wanted to, there's still a way that I can help. She crossed to the adjoining bathroom and disappeared into it. She emerged fully dressed, walking upright and proud. She regarded Hinata with kind, grateful eyes and a sense of purpose. You should stay here and look after Naruto, she said. Even if he has that demon in him to speed up his recovery, he'll still be out of it for a while. Make sure he heals properly, and don't let him leave until Tsunade-sama clears him. I'm sure he'll listen to you. Hinata nodded. Of course. Sakura nodded in kind, glanced at Naruto briefly, then walked out of the room. Hinata was left alone with Naruto. Climbing out of her own bed, she took a chair from the other side of the room and sat down at his side. She would watch over him while he slept, and be the first thing that he saw when he awoke. Looking at his serene face, she could see that his sleep was sound and untroubled. Good, she thought. Heaven knows that he needs it. She settled herself back in the chair and listened to the sounds of the busy hospital around her. Their floor was fairly quiet. Agonized screaming and moaning was very infrequent, for which she was grateful. In the next room, she could hear Akamaru's happy bark as Kiba began to stir. The dog owner greeted his beast with a tired, broken voice, but he was not laboring to breathe and did not vocalize his pains. My team is very lucky, she thought. All of us came out alive, and we will meet again to train together as soon as we are all well, which won't be long. The medical staff will treat us well because we are heroes. But Sakura-chan and Naruto-kun. Hinata looked down at Naruto again, and gave a sad smile. Naruto-kun, she whispered, reaching out to put a tender hand on his brow, I feel so badly for you. Sasuke-san is a traitor, a dangerous criminal, your team may never truly be together again. It's going to be so hard on you. Uchiha Sasuke had spent half of his life hating his older brother. This hatred had led him to abandon any hope for his future and seek vengeance for his past. The third anniversary of that fateful day was drawing ever nearer, only weeks away. He had spent those 3 years gaining strength in whatever dark or evil art that suited his needs. He did so because he believed that the way Konoha shinobi did things, with peace and stability as the ultimate goal, was too inherently weak for the purposes of revenge, especially against Uchiha Itachi. Yet, as he had found out, Konoha's way of doing things had been perfectly sufficient to stomp him into the dirt, even after all of his training in Orochimaru's blacker methods. If he had known this from the start, he wouldn't have been so surprised that he was now strapped into a chair in a sealed, Anbu interrogation chamber, his wounds only treated enough to keep him alive, with intravenous tubes stuck into his arm for the purpose of delivering not only life-preserving nutrients, but also whatever drugs the interrogator might later want to use. He could see the vials of numerous sinister-looking fluids resting in a rack on the far wall, near an assortment of painful-looking metal instruments. He's awake, announced an authoritative voice. It belonged to a masked Anbu standing to Sasuke's right. Go get Ibiki-sama and Tsunade-sama, quickly. They will want to begin immediately. Hi, senpai, said one of the Anbu by the door. He hurried out to hear his orders. Gritting his teeth against the extreme soreness and pain that he felt, Sasuke tested his restraints. They were expertly done. He might have been able to free himself if he were at the height of his power, but at the moment, he was pitifully weak, out of chakra, and out of luck. Don't bother, said his solemn companion. Even if you were to escape the chair restraints, we have orders to use lethal force in order to subdue you, and in your state, you wouldn't make it far. The young Uchiha didn't speak. Talking to this peon would be a waste of time, there would be no way to use an Anbu to his advantage, and he wouldn't be able to wheedle information out of him either. He sat in stony silence, awaiting the arrival of the people who actually meant something. They arrived soon enough. Morino Ibiki held the door for the Hokage, who strode into the chamber haughtily and powerfully. Her justice rage was palpable beneath her mask of authoritative calm, and all knew that if the Uchiha traitor wasn't very, very lucky, he was very likely doomed already. The door of the chamber closed. Tsunade began. Well, she said. Uchiha Sasuke, I see Naruto did quite the job on you, as expected. You were incredibly lucky to survive the night, thanks in no small part to me. You had better be grateful that I was able to stomach the stench that Orochimaru left on you, and that your head is more valuable on your shoulders than on a pike. You can't tee information from a head on a pike. Sasuke glared at her, allowing her to have her tirade while making it clear that he really didn't give a damn. He'd endured T-resistance practice, administered by Orochimaru himself, and Orochimaru had not been a kind instructor. He could take whatever she could dish out. Tsunade ignored him, continuing to speak. Naruto will come out of the hospital with a hero's fanfare. You, meanwhile, will entertain Ibiki until he has been sated, and then if you have no more information to give us, you'll be lucky if you're quickly rather than kept alive as his practice subject for the rest of your life. If you wanted information, Sasuke spat, you could have asked your colleague, Danzu. He's been the intelligence link between Orochimaru and Konoha for months. Tsunade's visage did not soften. Danzu was in your force's raid on the village council, she said. Even if we'd known about his involvement, and believe me, I did suspect, we couldn't ask him anything now. You mean he didn't run? Sasuke said, his face a mask of dispassionate surprise. Run? Tsunade asked. I thought he would have gotten scared and fled the village after his subordinate, Sai. Thinking about it, though, he might have expected me to, the kid was so annoying. This made Tsunade think. What was Sasuke getting at? Had he k'd the boy out of mere annoyance, or had he meant to warn Danzu? If he had meant the latter, why would Danzu's life be useful to him? With any other prisoner she might have dismissed such wondering, but Uchiha Sasuke was different. Everything he said had to be taken seriously and analyzed thoroughly, because every word might hold a clue about Orochimaru or Akatsuki. Tsunade opened her mouth, intending to ask more. Sudden noise from outside distracted her. There was yelling, pained yelping, and muffled thudding and thumping. Turning from Sasuke and narrowing her brow in irritation, she began to walk towards the door. What in the name of? The door burst open. From the hallway came a blur of motion that flowed into the chamber almost faster than a human eye could see. Its trajectory was aimed directly at Uchiha Sasuke. The guard at the chair's side reacted quickly enough, however, and restrained the intruder by its arms. The blur resolved into a woman with dark hair tied back in a long braid, intensely burning white eyes, and an elegant seal on her forehead that gleamed with yellow and blue luminescence. Her lips were curled back in a savage expression of loathing, and she fought the guard's grip relentlessly, trying with all her might to reach Sasuke and, from the looks of it, tear his heart out. Where did they take him? The woman snarled. Sasuke regarded her with wide eyes. Her aura is incredibly intense. Who is she? Haruka-san, cried one of the Anbu pleadingly, please, stop. You should not be here. The woman ignored him. She kept fighting her captor's grip, striving to free herself with all of her might. She kept her eyes fixed on Sasuke, eyes that emitted rays of pure hate. Where? She screamed at him. Where did your thugs carry Keisuke off to? Talk, damn you. Her struggling finally overpowered the guard, and she wrested herself out of his grip and flung herself at Sasuke. Her open palm was coiled by her side, prepared to shove right into his chest. Sasuke could feel power coming from that palm, power magnified by a rage the like of which he had only ever seen before in Naruto. For a fraction of a second, he felt that power coming straight for his heart, and knew that he faced death. Let go of me, Tsunade-sama. She yelled. Let me have. Ah. Her sentence was ended prematurely in a howl of pain as Tsunade squeezed her collarbone with her monstrous strength. The pressure was agonizing. If the Hokage squeezed any harder, the bone would snap. Hyuga Haruka. Tsunade snapped. Her face was livid with anger. You have not been ordered to carry out aggressive interrogation. That duty has been assigned to Morino Ibiki and the Anbu in his command. I command you, stand down or be punished. Haruka's struggles ceased. She stood stock still, fists at her sides, glaring daggers at Sasuke, but she no longer shouted, and did not try to break free. Sasuke was perplexed. Orochimaru had Keisuke of the grave taken as well. He thought, if he had me after Naruto already, why do that? He only needs one subject, unless he expected me to fail. The thought that his new master would abandon him to be devoured by the leaf sent the spark of anger coursing through him. Then he calmed. No, he wouldn't. He needs my body. He wouldn't give me up easily, especially not so close to the time of transfer. But then, why did he even take the risk in sending me here? He thought hard, but he did not come up with an answer immediately. Which was unfortunate, because Haruka had finally stopped staring lividly at him and left the room. His interrogation was about to resume. Tsunade turned to him again. Thanks to that interruption, I am out of time, she said. I am scheduled to meet with the Kazekage in 5 minutes, so I can't stay. As much as I'm sure you'll miss me, you'll have to make do with Ibiki, here. The tea expert stepped forward. Come now, Tsunade-sama, he said, my methods aren't that terrible. At least, they're never boring. Tsunade left the room, and the door closed. Ibiki smiled. I've been planning out this day's fun for well over a year, he said. Witnessing the invasion's aftermath firsthand did little to ease Sakura's anxiety. The district in which the Hokage Tower was located had been the center for much of the devastation, and she was surrounded by ruin, rubble, and grieving citizens. Everywhere she went, everything she saw, made her reflect on just who it was who had orchestrated all of this. Sasuke-kun. He might not have designed it. In fact, it was probably Orochimaru who deserved credit for that, but it had been Uchiha Sasuke who had seen it. There could be no skirting around that fact. Naruto would try to through it. Sakura could not. Trudging wearily through the ashes of a once happy neighborhood, she exerted every effort to hold herself tall, keep going. She was determined to do what she had resolved to do, as painful as it would be to her. The physical pain of her injuries helped distract her, and she was able to keep going. Suddenly, the crowd ahead of her parted with a cry of alarm. Sakura raised her head to see what was going on, glad for an excuse to be drawn out of her dismal thoughts. When she saw the familiar face and clothes, her gladness increased. Talking to a friend might do wonders for her nerves. Haruka-san, she called. Haruka heard her and looked around a moment, then saw her and started in recognition. Sakura walked over to her. Sakura-san, Haruka said, clearly surprised. They told me that you were badly injured. Why are you up and walking around so early? Sakura smiled. The medical staff trust me to know when my own body is ready. I'm a medic, too, after all. I could have walked out of there much earlier, if I chose. Ah, Haruka said, I see. Sakura began to notice something odd about the older woman. She seemed somehow subdued, complacent in comparison to her usual energetic and slightly mischievous self. Her face appeared tired and weathered, and the spark was gone from her eyes. Haruka-san, Sakura asked. I don't mean to be rude, but you seem a little out of sorts. Is something wrong? Haruka laughed. No, nothing's wrong. I'm a bit annoyed because of the branch house brown noses that have been following me around. Haruka-sama, Haruka-sama. But they're just an inconvenience. Nothing's wrong, nothing at all. Sakura didn't buy it. Haruka was making an effort to act normal, but her eyes still looked dull, lifeless, and there was a hollowness to her laugh. The medic thought hard, wondering what could be bothering her. After a moment, something clicked. Haruka-san, where is Keisuke-san? Is he injured? Is that why you're upset? Sakura knew she'd struck gold in the next instant. Haruka's eyes flickered with momentary fire, and her brow twitched. No, he's not, Haruka said. Though he will be when I find him. What? Does he think I'll miss him while he's hiding out in the woods, playing his damned joke? I don't. Who'd miss an idiot like him, anyway? Haruka forgot Sakura entirely and stormed away, absorbed in her own thoughts. Hiding in the woods, Sakura thought. Practical joke. Somehow, I don't think that's what happened. Oh, was Keisuke-san captured? She pondered the possibility as she walked the last block to the tower. Naruto and Hinata-chan are coming together, she thought. Haruka-san and Keisuke-san have been torn apart. Her breath caught in her chest, and her heart began to beat faster as she opened the door. Her anxiety was back in full swing as she entered the elevator and typed the code that would take her to the Anbu high security facility below. What is going to happen to me? Oh, Morino Ibiki let the boy scream one last time, and then held his hand up, commanding a halt in the process. A little respite, gentlemen, he said. This work makes me thirsty. And if we don't give him a break soon, he could die before we get anything out of him. He moved for the door, intent on getting himself a glass of cool water. He'd been in there for only 20 minutes, but he'd already dealt enough pain to make even his hardest prior subject spill his guts. Normally, he liked to take things slower, but this was a special case. He was already proving to be the toughest shell yet, and he might be many times tougher still. It was going to take a lot of energy, but he was determined to crack the boy wide open. As he opened the door, however, his eyes met with a head of pink hair. He nodded to himself in his mind. He'd expected the girl to show up here at least once. He moved out of her way courteously and closed the door behind her, forgetting his water for the moment. Haruno Sakura, the boy's former teammate, might have a certain ability to get under the Uchiha's skin that he, Ibiki, did not, and so he had decided beforehand to let her in if she showed up. Standing against the wall near the door, he waited to see what would happen. The boy reacted with a sneer. Sakura, he said, if you're here to try to talk sense into me again, it's too late. Crack. Ibiki and all of the Anbu present were shocked as the girl's fist s into Sasuke's jaw, making a horrible, sickening crunching sound as the bones fractured. None of them had expected this. They had been anticipating an exchange of questions, pleading, and argument. Under no circumstances had anyone ever imagined Haruno Sakura walking into the room and punching a helpless Uchiha Sasuke. Sasuke himself seemed mortified. He could no longer speak with his lower jaw broken, but the wide eyes and guttural cry spoke enough for his feelings. Sakura did not stay to watch his reaction. As soon as she'd finished, she turned on her heel and strode right back out the way she'd come. An alarmed Anbu found his coordination and opened and closed the door for her. For a long moment, the room was motionless and silent. Then Ibiki found his wits. You, he said, pointing at the Anbu who had worked the door, get Tsunade-sama. No, she's busy. Get Shizune-sama. If the boy is going to talk, he'll need his mouth fixed. Hi, Ibiki-sama. Ibiki watched the young Anbu go, then turned his gaze back onto Sasuke. He didn't seem to quite comprehend what had been done to him. Ibiki himself was still having trouble believing it. That girl, he thought, has matured quite a bit in the last 3 years. MMR. Naruto-kun. MMRF. Naruto-kun, are you awake? MMMPH. Ha. Sasuke. Naruto suddenly sat bolt upright in his bed, casting his eyes about for his treacherous former teammate. Naruto-kun, calm down. Sasuke-san is with the Anbu now, everything is okay. As his eyes finally adjusted to wakefulness, Naruto began to take in his surroundings. He realized that he was in Konoha's hospital. All about him were clean walls and linen bedsheets, fake plants, the patient file in the rack by the door, and sitting at the edge of his bed. Hinata, he said, recognizing his roommate. How long have I been here? The girl breathed a relieved sigh, glad that he was awake and had his wits about him. We were admitted to the hospital 9 hours ago, Naruto-kun, she said. Sakura-chan was here with us also, but she left us 30 minutes ago. Oh, Naruto said. And Sasuke, you said the Anbu had him. Hinata nodded. Yes. Kakashi-sensei said that they plan to interrogate him as soon as he wakes up, to learn what they can from him about Orochimaru. Well, that's a good thing, I suppose, Naruto said, relaxing against his headboard. It would be better if I could do the interrogating, but Tsunade-chan would never let me. Hinata made no comment. She had feared that he would feel enlightened to the decision of justice for Sasuke, and was pleased to see that he was not being so fanatical about it now. She didn't know how quickly that would change, however, so she felt it was best not to talk about it. She was spared the difficulty of finding something else to talk about by the loud rumblings of Naruto's stomach. Whoa, Naruto said. I forgot that I haven't eaten since yesterday afternoon. I knew I should have grabbed some ramen on the way out of the village. Hinata smiled. Here was a chance to get his thoughts off of Sasuke and onto other things, preferably her. It shouldn't be too late to get some now, she said. I'm feeling well enough to move. Would you like me to see what I can find in the hospital kitchen? Naruto's face brightened. Free food. He was there. Sure. Hinata-chan, he said cheerfully. Flushing with pleasure at the honorific that Naruto rarely used in conjunction with her, Hinata got up and began to walk out of the room. She was just reaching for the door handle when Naruto's voice stopped her. Wait a minute. Before you go, I have a question. Hinata turned to look back at him. She thought at first that it might have something to do with the food, but when she saw the serious, soul-piercing look in his blue eyes, she thought differently. Something important was on his mind. Her nerves began to prickle. Why yes. Naruto paused, as though carefully considering his thoughts. Last night, Hinata's heart rate increased. Yes. When you said, your life is as valuable as mine, what did you mean? Naruto was less immature than he had been 3 years ago. He had his suspicions about what she might have meant. The problem was, if it was what he thought it was, he had no idea what his reaction would be. There was, however, only one way to find out, and that was to confront her directly. They had just survived an incredibly rough battle together. What better time was there than now to ask? He watched as the girl's cheeks colored and her eyes refocused from his face onto the floor. For a moment, he thought that she was going to fall back into her shy habit and give an unintelligible answer. But then, she seemed to take on a fresh determination. Though she remained red, she looked him squarely in the eyes, as she had done the night before. Her hands were clasped in front of her, but she did not fidget. Her mouth opened. Naruto-kun. Interrupted another voice, I heard that Sakura-san was in this room. Do you know where she went? Hinata started. Lee-kun. Naruto shrugged. I don't know where Sakura went off to. You might want to try the Hokage Tower, though, since she has to report there sometime anyway. Ah, I see, said the green-clad young Chunin. Thank you. I wish you a speedy recovery, Naruto-kun. And you, Hinata-san. Neji sends his love, as well, though he is currently very busy with things at the Hyuga estate. Ah. Thank you, Lee-kun. Hinata said. Lee gave a wink and a toothy smile, and with a parting, sayonara, was on his way. Hinata stood at the door uncomfortably. Naruto gave an encouraging gesture. Okay, what were you gonna say, Hinata? Hinata swallowed. She hadn't counted on being interrupted. She had to take a moment to collect her resolve once again. It didn't take long. Within a few seconds, she was ready again. Naruto-kun. Hinata, yelled another voice from the doorway. You're all right, huh? Did your sister come back okay? Naruto and Hinata turned their faces to the source of this new intruder. Kiba was there, looking into their room from a wheelchair. Akamaru sat comfortably on his right side, tail wagging happily. Kiba, Naruto shouted. What the heck happened to you? Long story, Kiba said. Got into a nasty fight with a couple of enemies over Hinata's little sister. I got whipped. Luckily, Shino's folks got me to the medics in time. I was almost a goner there. Well, Naruto said, it's good that you didn't die. I still owe you a rematch, after all. Kiba chuckled. Yeah, I forgot about that. Let's both concentrate on getting better first, okay? Naruto grinned, sure. But watch out once I'm out of here. Take it easy, dog breath. You too. Glad to see you're okay, Hinata. Make sure this idiot keeps out of trouble. Thank you, Kiba-kun, Hinata said. I will. Kiba rolled away, Akamaru trailing happily alongside him. Geez, Naruto said, can you believe this? I didn't think we'd get interrupted this much. Hinata silently agreed. It was beginning to frustrate her as well. I won't let it happen again, she thought, and closed the door tightly. Stepping forward, she looked at Naruto again, determined to speak the words before she lost her chance. Naruto-kun, Naruto-kun, get up and get dressed. Ah, not again. Naruto cried. Haruka-ne-chan, we're a little busy right now. I don't have time for busy, Haruka said, annoyed. I've had enough of being put off. I'm doing it now, and you're going to help me. Naruto sighed. It seemed that there was no avoiding it. Help you what, Haruka-ne-chan? Haruka's face was full of indestructible purpose. Help me find Keisuke. I have told you, said the evil Sannin, I am not at all worried. Orochimaru sat shrouded in darkness, deep in the bowels of the earth where only his most trusted lieutenants would find him, and then only if he wanted to be found. The earthen walls of his throne chamber reverberated with the sounds of heavy work being done above. Yet the pillars holding them back from collapsing onto their occupants held true, and the snake Sannin was comfortable in his hole in the ground. My objectives will still be achieved. I knew that Sasuke-kun would be unable to resist a chance to test himself against the Kyuubi child. I planned for every eventuality. If Sasuke-kun won, and took Naruto-kun alive, all would be well. If Sasuke-kun killed Naruto-kun, the secrets of this Ryu technique would not die with him, there was another that we could take. And if Sasuke-kun were defeated, by some twist of fate. Orochimaru-sama, if Sasuke-sama does not return. Orochimaru held up a silencing hand. He will. But, the Godime Hokage will most certainly. Kill him. Orochimaru finished, laughing softly. No, I think not. Not when he could be so useful to them. Information about my movements, my health, and my plans is in his head, information that they will want. And afterwards, muttered the visitor, when there is no more use for him, they will dispose of him as they would any other traitor of their village. That is undoubtedly their intent, Orochimaru agreed. Then his little smile spread along his serpentine face. But there is one person who, like us, will want to keep him alive. Someone who believes that he can be saved. A short silence ensued, broken by comprehension. Uzumaki Naruto. Of all people, he is the least likely to have any power in the decision of Sasuke-sama's fate. By all means, then, underestimate him, said the snake Sannin, still smiling. You will be rather pleasantly surprised. Naruto-kun is quite close to Tsunade, and if he fails to influence her, then he is powerful enough to do it the rough way. If he was able to defeat Sasuke-kun, then saving him will be no difficult task. The visitor considered. All right, he said, suppose the boy keeps Sasuke-sama alive. How? Then, are we going to get them both to come here willingly? Orochimaru's grin broadened maniacally, and he leaned forward, allowing his face to be partially illuminated by torchlight. Sasuke-kun's natural inclination will be to return to me. Naruto-kun is not likely to stop him, as he will want to come to us as well. The reason, of course, being your prisoner, our very special guest. At last, the visitor's concerns seemed to be assuaged. He glanced away from his host and towards the unconscious prisoner, who was bound up in a black sheet and secured by tightly tied metal wire. The covering was opened at the top, allowing the top of his head to show through and letting in just enough air to prevent suffocation. A mane of brown hair and a sliver of pale forehead were all that was visible. The visitor rose from his kneel and went to the prisoner's side. Pulling the cloth down below the captive's neck, he looked upon his face and smiled in mute satisfaction. The notion that this fool was the father of the greatest shinobi clan ever to live was ludicrous. Gazing into the prisoner's empty eye sockets, the visitor saw reflected in the darkness the image of a red-eyed blonde. Uzumaki Naruto, he thought, I know you will not leave your pitiful friend here to suffer. No, you will come, and then I will show to you the nature of your folly. You have no hope of winning, all hope was erased on the day you crossed me. Naruto stared incredulously at Haruka, all annoyance at being interrupted forgotten. Nei-chan, Keisuke's missing. Are you sure he's not just playing another joke? If he doesn't want to come home with both legs still attached, he'd better not be, Haruka fumed. Naruto had not seen her this upset in almost a year. She looked ready to crush, rend, and demolish anything, probably Keisuke himself included, to get to the blind man, wherever he was. The bedridden blonde gulped. This was not going to be a pleasant encounter. Okay, he said, trying to be the anchor of rationality in the face of this angry storm. Where did you last see him? In his house, came the reply. I came back there after the fighting ended to collect his gourd, but the bastard was gone. All I found was this damned note. She dug a piece of paper out of her pocket and flipped it to him. Naruto read it, and his eyes went wide. Naruto-kun, asked Hinata carefully, what is it? This. Naruto began, color draining from his face, this isn't something that Nei-chan would joke about. He'd say he was leaving because of Ero Sennin's bad smell or something that Nei-chan was going to do to him. That kind of thing. Nothing like this. Hinata was puzzled. Nothing like what? Read it yourself, Haruka grated. Naruto handed the paper to Hinata. She read it, and now it was her turn to act surprised. Oh, she said. Keisuke-san must have been kidnapped. Bastard-napped, if you ask me, Haruka mumbled. Her impatience might as well have been advertised on a neon sign. But, Hinata asked, who would want to kidnap Keisuke-san? Who do we know that would want to try to take the power away from him? Naruto grimaced, a memory coming back to him. Before you came, Hinata, Sasuke said this, Orochimaru is like me. He is always on the lookout for new powers that he can seize and master. If this Reud can be obtained merely by AB transfusion, then it would be worthwhile to collect a specimen and try it out. Damn it, I should have guessed it before. The snake bastard would definitely have had a backup plan in case Sasuke failed. Even though he didn't get me, he'll still get the Reud because he has Keisuke Nei-chan. He sat bolt upright in his bed, ignoring the pain of his wounds, and tried to rise. Damn it, I've got to talk to Sasuke. Naruto-kun, don't. Hinata cried. She leapt forward and grabbed his wrist with one hand, using her other hand to try to force him to lie back down by pushing on the center of his chest. Naruto, caught off guard, had no power to resist, and fell flat on his back again immediately. Hinata, who had expected him to fight back a little harder, couldn't stop her forward momentum, and fell on top of him. Oof, wheezed Naruto as the air rushed out of his lungs. Hinata lay still for a moment, comprehending her position. The top half of her was sprawled over his abdomen, one hand still gripping his wrist. The other hand, however, had grabbed a leg for support when she had begun falling, and her head, though it cleared his body, was in close proximity to Naruto's waist. The familiar heat crept into her face, multiplied several hundred times. Cute, Haruka commented blandly. At any other time I'd be happy to use this for blackmail, but I'm not really in that particular mood today. Can we please move on? Blushing madly, Hinata carefully raised herself to her feet and reseated herself in her chair by Naruto's bed. She recovered herself quickly, however, and looked seriously, if still slightly red-faced, at the careless blonde. Please, Naruto-kun, she said, voice gentle but firm, don't try to get up. The doctors have not cleared you to move around yet. You won't be able to do anything for Keisuke-san if you re-injure yourself. Naruto looked up into her eyes from the bed, and saw the concern there. Yet he had heard force in her words as well, something that had been absent from her in all their previous interactions. She was willing to fight him to keep him here and make him rest. Such benevolent spirit spoke to Naruto's rebellious soul, and made him relent. Okay, Hinata-chan, he said, smiling up at her, you're right. I'll stay put. Stay put. Haruka half yelled in rage, Keisuke is being taken to Orochimaru. This isn't Daisuke of the grave or that time in the grass country or even Uchiha Sasuke. This is the man who kept Keisuke in his laboratory for weeks and teased him just to see if being a blind fool makes you more susceptible to pain. Hinata and Naruto both recoiled from her, startled at her heated outburst. The woman was almost raving. This time, that idiot has something that Orochimaru wants. Do you really think he'll care if Keisuke d, as long as he gets the Rokujuon Raid from him? I don't, and that's why I'm not going to wait. If you can't move, then I'll move you. We'll take that Uchiha filth and make him talk, and then we'll turn the snake's nest upside down until we find that blind bastard. Haruka started moving toward Naruto, face full of angry resolve, meaning to pluck the blonde from his hospital bed and drag him away. Hinata saw this, and was in motion in an instant. She interposed herself between Haruka and Naruto, poised to strike if the older woman came any closer. Haruka-san, please, don't come any closer, she said. Her mind quailed in dismay, not wanting to strike a friend. But her eyes were set and determined, fiercely glaring at Haruka with the intent to stop her ordeal. Haruka stopped, and her eyes closed. Apparently, she also was having misgivings about fighting Hinata. I told myself, Hinata-sama, she said, that if I were to swear allegiance to any leader, it would be to you. Hinata balked, regarding Haruka with amazement. She wasn't the type to accept any leader at all, not even her. But, Haruka continued, no matter how much I would rather avoid hurting you. Her head snapped back up. Her eyes were argent fire, searing into Hinata and Naruto with undeniable purpose. She edged back her palm, ready to strike a stunning blow. Right now, she finished, I will not be. A light noise was heard, followed by a heavy thud as Haruka crumpled to the floor. Mouth agape, Naruto stared long at her prone form, face down on the floor. Then his eyes fixed on the feet of her attacker, and began to move upward. His gaze crossed the length of a white traditional robe, all the way up to the face of you. He shouted, startled. Hinata did not relax her defensive position, but her face took on a confused expression, as though debating whether or not it was safe to lower her guard. She looked upon the newcomer with a mix of recognition, fear, and hope. Father, she said quietly. Hiashi ignored them both. Instead, he called to two of the medics who were moving by in the hallway outside. When they came in the door, he indicated Haruka. She is not hurt, he said. Only very stressed. Take her to a quiet, secure place where she may rest and not be disturbed, nor disturb anyone else. Hi, Hyuga-sama, acquiesced the taller of the two med-nins. They retrieved a stretcher and arranged Haruka comfortably upon it, then lifted her up and bore her away. This done, Hiashi turned to his daughter. I do not come here to harm him, Hinata, he said, causing the girl to relax and drop her arms to her sides. I would, however, like to speak with him. Privately, if I may. Hinata looked at him nervously, clearly not entirely trusting his proclamation. Hiashi grimaced at this behavior, knowing that he had brought this distrust upon himself and wishing that he hadn't. Then the girl turned her face towards the boy in the bed, a question framed in her expression. Naruto-kun. Naruto, perfectly calm, nodded to her. It's all right, Hinata. You can leave this to me. She continued to look at him for a moment, as though measuring the sincerity of his statement. Hinata was looking for any excuse not to leave him alone with her father, the events of yesterday's encounter between the two fresh in her mind. Eventually, however, she decided that he meant it, and resolved to let him do it his way. Though she regretted it, the Hyuga girl collected herself, nodded, and walked past her father, departing gracefully and without another word. With a last cautioning look at Naruto, she closed the door behind her. Naruto was alone with Hyuga Hiashi. Several minutes passed with both men awkwardly silent, the only sounds being those of the busy hospital outside the door. Naruto spent this time staring fixedly at Hiashi, sizing him up, waiting to see what it was he wanted and, if his intentions were in fact hostile, how he might counter them. But the Hyuga head had told the truth when he had said he wasn't here to hurt him. He could have attacked silently and kill him at any time, yet he remained standing where he was, his eyes closed, composing himself. Finally, when he had apparently collected himself sufficiently and had the right words in mind, Hiashi opened his silver eyes and broke the silence. Uzumaki Naruto, he began, I have thought about you many times recently. Because of your involvement with Haka no Keisuke, those thoughts were almost exclusively negative. I believed that you were part of a plot to infiltrate the Hyuga and tear it apart from within. Yet, this plan of yours and the Great Father's turned out to be benevolent. Excuse me, Naruto interrupted, looking quizzical. What do you mean? What's this plan you're talking about? Hiashi's eyebrows raised unconsciously. He had thought that the boy knew, was in on it with full cooperation. This changed some things, but it did not significantly alter what he had to say. Very well, he said, it seems that Keisuke has not openly included you in his plan, but has been manipulating you, steering you stealthily into this without your knowledge. He is gone now, and his goal has likely already been met. He should not object to me telling you. Naruto eyed his head, trying to make sense of what was being said. Ni-chan was manipulating me. Damn, I need to work on my perception skills. All this time, and I never guessed. Hiashi cleared his throat. If I may. Naruto stopped talking. Thank you. As I was saying, the Great Father, Keisuke, had a plan, in which you played the key role. His aim was to bring you closer to my daughter, so that you might marry into the clan and gain a position of power. In this way, Keisuke hoped to gain a foothold in Hyuga and alter it for what he perceived to be its own benefit. Naruto's mind reeled. Closer to Hinata. Marry into the Hyuga. That's what Ni-chan wanted. That is what he told me, Hiashi said. And it seemed as though he was making progress, during those weeks when you were assigned to her protection. It is not surprising, considering my daughter's affection for you. She has long admired you, and over the years this admiration has become a powerful infatuation, and recently love. Are you all right? Hiashi looked down upon the floor where Naruto had landed, tangled in his bedsheets. The boy had been leaning so far towards his visitor in an effort to hear him clearly that he had fallen out, and was now struggling against sheets and bandages to get back onto it. The Hyuga watched the scene with mute amusement. I see that you did not know this, either, he said. Hey, Naruto said, finally managing to get back on top of the mattress. Well, I kinda suspected it, these past few days. She started getting more confident, and that made her more expressive. So I had a hunch. But you're right, she didn't confirm it, and the concept is still new to me, so I'm kind of surprised. Hiashi surprised Naruto by giving a small smile. You seem to be taking the news fairly well. I certainly did not. His smile turned sad, remembering the horrible conflict that he had had with his daughter that day. Naruto caught his change of emotion, and regarded the older man with a straighter face, listening respectfully for once. I was prejudiced against Keisuke because I believed him to be a false great father, a relative of yours come to take vengeance against Hyuga for a past offense. I saw you as guilty by association, and even worse, for you also harbor unwillingly a monster that nearly annihilated our home. For those reasons, I failed to hear anything of your good qualities, and forbade Hinata contact with you in any sense except in the line of duty. Hiashi smiled ruefully. You can imagine how spitted I felt when I learned that you had been assigned as her personal guard. I had efforts organized to observe you, and make certain that you crossed no lines. Luckily, these were thwarted by our mutual friend, Haruka, as were those of the council. The latter, by the way, has been disbanded. When Hinata inherits the clan, she will rule absolutely with no opposition. Naruto smiled. That's good. It is, agreed Hiashi, nodding. But it is beside the point, which is that I misjudged you, and treated you unfairly until events yesterday caused my point of view to expand. Hinata has told me the tale of how you protected her from being branded with the seal of the caged bird, a sacrifice that must have caused you great pain and which raises dangerous questions. I have also been told by Hanabi that it is because of you that I still have 2 daughters. Ah, Naruto said, remembering the last incident, so she did make it back all right. That's good. Hinata wouldn't have been happy if she had D. Without a doubt, Hiashi said. And neither would I have. For these 2 great acts of heroism, as well as countless smaller ones that I have yet to hear of, you deserve thanks, Uzumaki Naruto. Allow me to offer that grade, along with my apology. You are indeed the strong and good person that my daughter professes you to be. I would fall to my knees, but such a gesture would not be enough to express the acknowledgement you are due. Naruto sat against his headboard, regarding the tall Hyuga. Though the posture was rigid and the lips were tight, the sliver eyes were full of sincerity. This, along with the gracious words that had been spoken, fed straight into Naruto's brain as good signs. The blonde gave a giant grin that spanned the width of his face. Hey, you can tell that you and Hinata are related, he said. Both of you are too nice when you compliment people. It wasn't that hard, really. Likewise, Naruto-san, Hiashi said, you are too modest in accepting such compliments, much like your father was. The blonde's head perked up, and his blue eyes stared through the Hyuga head with a new interest. What was it he had said about his father? Naruto, having never known his parents, was more than willing to hear stories about them. Are you surprised that I knew your father? Asked Hiashi. I did not know him in the sense that you know your friends. We were acquaintances, working in the same occupation. I remember that he was not quite so inclined towards noisiness and chaos as you were in youth, but he was able to put his heart into the missions that he was assigned, and he did well, receiving many compliments. As I said, he was modest when people that he knew and respected offered him praise for great deeds. He was a good person. It was a shame that the Hyuga did not acknowledge it. Naruto questioned, if he was such a great guy, then what could he have done to piss off your clan? Hiashi called back memories that made his soul ache. They despised him for a reason similar to one of the several that caused me to demonize you. He courted my sister. It is understandable for such people as mine to want to keep marriages in the same high social class. That is, my parents and their supporters did not want my sister to marry one of such low station as your father. The scandal nearly tore the clan to pieces. Listening intently, Naruto took all of this in with grim patience. This was beginning to sound like a tragedy. And, how did the problem get solved? He asked. It is a long tale, Hiashi conceded. One that I would tell you later, when I have more time. But my clan requires my attention, so I must be brief. My sister and your father were taken prisoner by a brutal organization of raiders, and my sister was M. Your father risked his life to return her body to its home. This should have redeemed him in the eyes of all of the Hyuga, but it did not. Because of their prejudice towards him for his earlier offense, they continued to hate him. Their lack of grade hurt him, and transformed him into a much more subdued version of his former self. His life was rarely happy after that. Though he managed to move on and marry another woman, he never fully recovered. He fighting the monster Kitsune, Kyubi, on the night that you were born. Your mother shortly afterward. Hiashi regarded Naruto's sad visage, and regretted having to tell him such a sad story. Yet, he resolved to finish it. I have recognized him as a good person. You and any siblings you might have had would have been right to seek vengeance, and I count myself as lucky that you do not. It was wrong of my clan to do this to him after what he sacrificed for my sister. Because of us, a good shinobi's career was stunted. Such a waste, and the fault is ours. For this also, I apologize, Naruto-san. He was Uzumaki Kenji, first user of the Rokuju Yonryu and the maternal half-brother of Yondaime Hokage. This last sentence hit Naruto like a ton of bricks. Half-brother. So that means, I'm Yondaime's half-nephew. He turned this realization over and over in his mind. Then, another one, first Ryude user. That means it is inherited after all. This is huge. Naruto's thoughts were broken by Hiashi's voice, continuing to speak. I know that I have said much already, and that you require time to think on this, he said, but I must say one thing more before I leave you. Haka no Keisuke has been taken by an enemy of immense power. I know that you will follow after him, no matter what anyone may say to convince you not to. I also know that Hinata will want to go with you. Know that I will trust you to protect her with your life, as Kenji would have done, and as I have no doubt that you will succeed in doing. I expect no less from the man whom I will one day know as Hokage-sama. Do you understand? Hearing these words, Naruto felt a new vigor come into his body. He had thought that he was going to be subjected to the drivel of an angry parent or the wrath of a vengeful Jukan god. Instead, he had gained the acceptance of yet another former enemy. And to be acknowledged as the future Hokage. Naruto raised his less injured arm in a sloppy, bandage-restricted salute that made Hiashi smirk. Yes, sir. Good, said the Hyuga head. Now, I must return to my people. Rest well, Naruto-san, and good luck. Hiashi departed, leaving Naruto to his many thoughts. Sunlight poured in from the open window, bathing the blonde in its golden glory. The effect bolstered Naruto's positive mood, curing his spirit. I won't need luck, he thought. I've never had any. But I always succeeded without it, and I will again. This time, it's definitely going to succeed, Hinata thought. She had seen her father leave the building, looking as though he'd left behind a great burden. After listening for several minutes and not hearing any screams of alarm from the direction of Naruto's floor, she was satisfied that it had gone well. Now, then, was the perfect time to finish what she'd begun. Carrying a fresh bowl of miso pork ramen in her hands, she climbed the steps to the correct floor and began walking the length of the hall back to the room they shared. I won't become flustered, even if I'm interrupted, she assured herself. I'll lock the door and have him eat this. Then, when he is calm and there is nothing else to stop me, I will say it. Hinata ran this plan over and over in her mind 13 times before finally reaching the door. It was closed, but not locked, and she opened it slowly. She was still not entirely sure that her father had left him totally fine, but she wouldn't know unless she looked. To her relief, he was perfectly intact and was busy staring out of the window, absorbed in thought. She put on her best cheerful face and called to him softly. Naruto-kun, I brought you some food. You do like miso pork, right? Naruto turned to see her and the bowl she carried. He took a sniff of the ramen fumes in the air and matched her cheerful smile with his own. Yep, I do. Thanks a lot, Hinata-chan. Ah, good. You're welcome, she said with a blush. Tentatively, she sat down on the edge of the bed and reached the ramen towards him. Naruto sat up carefully against the headboard again and accepted the bowl and chopsticks from her gratefully. In the space of 30 seconds, half of the noodles were gone. Hungry from the long previous day and from nearly 24 hours without food, Naruto ate with the usual gusto and with even more enjoyment. Yet, after a few moments, Hinata took note of some odd behavior in the boy. Naruto ate with his normal enthusiasm, but he did it while watching her. He seemed to be looking for something in her, as though he had been told that she was carrying a fortune in Ichiraku-free ramen passes on her person and was trying to catch a glimpse of them. While Hinata was happy, and somewhat red, for the attention, she could not help but wonder what had brought it on. Is it because I never answered his question before, and he is even more curious? Or, did father tell him something? Naruto's sudden cessation of eating brought Hinata's train of thought to an abrupt stop. He had finished the bowl, and was now regarding her intensely. It seemed that he had had enough of trying to find the answer in her appearance, and was making ready to phrase his question in words. Hinata, he said, starting off in a serious tone. Then his mouthparts failed him, and he had to struggle to get the rest of it out. Your dad, when he was in here, he said something that had me wondering. The Hyuga girl found herself feeling strange. Something big was about to happen, she could sense it. What was it that her father had told him that was so difficult for him to ask about? What was it, Naruto-kun? She asked. Well, about you. Hinata felt her heart leap up between her ears. She resisted the urge to look over her shoulder and make sure that the door was locked. If this was what she thought it was, some nervous impulse like that could ruin the moment. Instead, she kept her gaze fixed on Naruto, and was surprised to see that he was beginning to change color slightly. There was no longer any doubt, this would be it. Hinata, he told me that you, A large concussion rocked the building, sending the empty ramen bowl to the floor, where it shattered. Hinata was unbalanced in her seat and sent sprawling backwards against Naruto. The blonde caught her with one arm around her shoulders, using his other arm to steady himself against the aftershocks. What the hell was that? Naruto wondered aloud. A cool female voice issuing from the intercom system in the wall answered him. Please remain calm. The concussion that you have just felt was not an earthquake. The enemy damaged several water mains in their initial attack, and many of those damaged pipes have been bursting spontaneously throughout the village. Do not be alarmed, we are safe, and the leak will be stopped quickly. Thank you for understanding. Naruto screwed up his face in annoyance. Damn it, he said, I've had enough of these stupid interruptions. So had Hinata. She was tired of having her words drowned out by other people and actions. She would stand for it no longer. This was going to happen now, or never. A gleam of inspiration sparked in her lavender-tinted eyes. Hell with it, Naruto mumbled, Hinata. He was about to question the hand, but he was soon occupied with something else. A pair of soft lips pressed firmly against his own, and he could not protest. The Godime Hokage sat in her office, holding conference with her advisors, with the leaders of the damage control and restoration units, and with two other important people. The first of these latter two was the Kazekage, Sabaku no Gara, who had volunteered to leave a garrison of his own elite shinobi to help protect the village while it rebuilt itself, and with whom soon had discussed the establishment and protection of new supply lines to speed up the recovery. The second was Morino Ibiki, who was now making his report before the congregation. We have had moderate success, he said. From the prisoner, Uchiha Sasuke, we have learned that Orochimaru is currently in a weakened state, due to the rejection process in his borrowed body having commenced. We have also learned that he is planning another attack in the near future, though he will not be using his own sound shinobi. Instead, he will use agents within the country of water to manipulate the Mizukage and his forces. This involves, to some degree, convincing the Kirigakure shinobi that we have been weakened far beyond our ability to fight off invaders and that this is an optimum time to attack us. Other persuasive strategies are likely in place, but this is the one that the prisoner saw most fit to mention. Tsunade nodded. And have you gained any knowledge of Orochimaru's whereabouts? Ibiki frowned. No, Hokage-sama. He has absolutely refused to give any details about Orochimaru's exact location. However, he let this last word hang a moment, making sure that he had the required attention before resuming. Hokage-sama, I cannot guarantee that what he says on this last matter is truthful, but to use any more force to try to verify it would be fatal to the prisoner. I myself do not know what to make of it. Tsunade's turn to frown came, and she took the chance. Out with it, Ibiki. Ibiki paused, inhaled, and continued. Tsunade-sama, Uchiha Sasuke offers a bargain. He will guide a force of our shinobi to Orochimaru's next scheduled hideout, in exchange for his life. Allow me to make it clear that he does not ask for his freedom, he wants merely to live. I cannot know for sure what it means, but it may just be that he thinks he's good enough to escape on his own, if he regains his strength. The Godime took this in, considered it. This could mean any number of things: Sasuke giving himself a chance to escape, Orochimaru setting a trap for them. But, she thought, on the off chance that his offer is a genuine one, it could allow us to get rid of Konoha's greatest enemy forever. I'm not a good gambler, but is this offer a bet that I really want to pass up? Not committing herself either way just yet, the Hokage decided that she would squeeze as many details out of the interrogator as she could before making a choice. Ibiki, she said, have you been able to get any information at all about the general area of this hideout he wants to take us to? Ibiki nodded the affirmative. I have, Hokage-sama. As I said, he will not tell me the exact location, but he has given me the name of the region. Tsunade bored her eyes into him. Well, Hokage-sama, Ibiki said, the facility that Uchiha Sasuke has named is in the region known as the Grave. That will be all for this video. Be sure to like, subscribe, share, and comment down below for more videos. Goodbye.